Hi students, once again I am meeting you to continue the lesson, that is chapter 2, Human Reproduction. Yesterday we concluded about the oogenesis process. As a result of oogenesis, you know the female gamete, the ovum or the egg is produced. Now see the structure of the female gamete or ovum or egg. So the ovum is released from the ovary by ovulation process. Now it is a female gamete. It is normally described as alecital. So classification is based on the amount of yolk. Eggs are classified based on the amount of yolk. Some eggs we have large amount of yolk, as in the case of hen's egg, or we have moderate amount of yolk, or just a small amount of yolk, or no yolk at all. So alecital egg, the egg is alecital, the meaning for that one, no yolk. Because the yolk is a reserve food material. In other organisms, an example of frog or hen's egg, the development is taking place within the egg. But in the case of human beings, it is a mother who provides nourishment directly to the developing fetus. That is why there is no need to have yolk in the egg. Such an egg without yolk is called alecital egg. And again we can classify the eggs into two types based on the presence and absence of shell, the calcium carbonate shell. For example, in the case of reptilian egg or in the case of hen's egg, we have an outer shell made up of calcium carbonate. Such eggs are called cladoid eggs, eggs with the shell. But in the case of human egg, no calcium carbonate shell is present, hence it is called non-cladoic egg. The meaning for that one, absence of shell. That is what is called calcium carbonate shell. That's why human egg is called non-cladoic egg, including other mammals also. So it is microscopic in nature, having a diameter of nearly about 100 micrometer or micron. That is the size of the egg. The sperm is the smallest cell, that is what we have, the male gamete, and the egg is the largest cell somehow. You can see the egg clearly. That's the various components under the microscope, but not the sperm. The sperm is the smallest cell when compared to the egg. Now what are the components we have in the case of egg of humans? Now it is a modified cell having a cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is otherwise called the ooplasm. As it is found in the egg or oocyte, it is called ooplasm. Now in the ooplasm we have a nucleus. Unlike the other cells where we have the nucleus is found in the geometrical center, exactly here. But here you see that when the nucleus is pushed towards one corner, that too what is called actually the animal pole. If you are taking the egg, we have two poles, animal pole and vegetal pole, as in the case of earth. Here the nucleus is pushed towards animal pole. It is not present in the geometrical center, it is eccentric in position. And again the nucleus is filled with or bloated with the fluid, filled with the fluid. Bloated with the fluid. It is not solid, it contains more fluid, hence the nucleus is called the germinal vesicle. The reason for that one, it is just like a vesicle filled with more fluid, bloated with the fluid. Then, so we have a nucleus also inside. What we have the nucleus. Now this is the nucleus. The book given wrongly just marked, this is the nucleus. The entire structure is called the nucleus, otherwise called as a germinal vesicle. Okay, so ooplasm, germinal vesicle, then we have what is called the cytoplasm, otherwise called the ooplasm. Now the entire egg is surrounded by three layers, outer, middle and inner. I will go from inner to outer. Now the ooplasm is surrounded by an inner transparent layer. That is called the vitelline membrane. You see that one, inner thin transparent layer, vitelline membrane. And next to it we have what is called Zona Pellucida. It is a middle thick layer. So this is a middle thick layer, Zona Pellucida. See that one? What we have, vitelline membrane, the black colored one. The green colored one is the Zona Pellucida, middle thick. The outermost layer, which is nothing but actually a lining of follicles. Many follicle cells are normally surrounding the egg. Many follicle cells surrounding the egg, and all these follicle cells together constitute corona radiata. At the time of ovulation, when the egg is released from the ovary, it carries with it many follicle cells surrounding what we have the egg, and that layer is called corona radiata. So it is outer thick layer. The cells are aggregate together, the cells are stuck together, the cells adhere together because of a substance what's called hyaluronic acid. So between the cells we have hyaluronic acid, I mentioned about that one. It is being removed by the enzyme of the sperm released by the acrosome hyaluronidase. That is the one we need for the penetration of the sperm into the egg. So these are all the different components. What we have actually corona radiata, Zona Pellucida, vitelline membranes, the three outer coverings. Along with you have the cytoplasm, the ovoplasm, then the nucleus, the germinal vesicle, which is vesicular, having more fluid. Then between the Zona Pellucida and what we have vitelline membrane, you see that one. There is a space. This space is called perivitelline space. A space present between what is called inner vitelline membrane and middle Zona Pellucida. This is what's called perivitelline space. Some cortical reactions are taking place at the time of fertilization, the perivitelline space. That is what the female gamete, or we can say the egg or ovum structure. Now we have to go for the next one, the menstrual cycle, the reproductive cycle, or the ovarian cycle. Now we have to discuss something about the menstrual cycle or ovarian cycle. Now menstrual cycle is very common in the case of primates, including the mammals. Primates, this is a common character. In the case of other mammals, so you can see the menstrual cycle in the case of primates, the order primates, including what we have, just the apes, then other chimpanzees, the monkeys, including human beings. In all other mammals, we have a cycle what's called estrous cycle. Estrous cycle. This is otherwise called as the heat period. Now, in the case of menstrual cycle, it occurs specific time, recurrently. But in the case of heat period or the estrous cycle, it is common in the case of other mammals, during which there is no cyclic events, when there is just a heat period called actually that one. Now the female is receptive for the male, so copulation occurs and the development proceeds. But in the case of menstrual cycle, we have recurrent events happening once in a month. Now the menstrual cycle or the ovarian cycle occurs approximately at about 28 to 29 days. 28 to 29 days. During the reproductive life of female, from menarche to menopause. Menarche to menopause. Menarche to menopause. So menarche means attaining puberty. Menarche means attaining puberty. Menopause, stoppage of menstrual cycle. Stoppage of menstrual cycle. The average age for menopause stage is roughly 50 years in the case of female. So the menstrual cycle occurs once in every, for example, 28 to 29 days during the reproductive life of the female from menarche to menopause, except during pregnancy or gestation. So there is no menstrual cycle just actually during the pregnancy. Now normally the menstrual cycle is started from one menstrual period. From one menstrual period till the next one. Till the next one. So between two successive menstrual period, or we can say what is called menstruation. Suppose this is the first menstruation. After the completion of the cycle, we have the next menstruation. So the next menstruation just now marks the beginning of the next cycle. So the cycle of events that occurs during one menstruation or one menstrual period till the next menstrual period is called what is known as a menstrual cycle. The duration I mentioned already, 28 to 29 days. So between one menstrual period to the next menstrual period, a cyclic events happening. The cyclic events are happening both in the uterus as well as what we have in the ovary. The uterine endometrium, the innermost layer of uterus, that undergoes cyclic changes during the menstrual cycle. Not only in the uterine wall but also in the ovary we have changes occur. So changes occur both in uterus and as well as what we have in the ovary. So the absence of actually menstrual cycle indicates what we have, the pregnancy. So the cyclic menstruation, if the menstruation is taking place regularly, that's called cyclic menstruation, is an indicator of normal female reproductive phase. So one can understand without any problem. If the cyclic menstruation is happening, then it is an indicator for normal, just what is called reproductive phase. Normal reproductive phase is being normally indicated by the cyclic menstruation happening every month. Now, normally the menstrual cycle for convenience being divided into 4 stages. What are the 4 stages of menstrual cycle? Number 1, the menstrual phase. Menstrual phase. So it is about what is called 1 to 5th day. 1 to 5th day normally, but in the book it is given 3 to 5 days, menstrual phase. Then the second one, follicular phase. Follicular phase. Also called by name, what is called proliferative phase. Proliferative phase. Because 2 events are happening. One, the formation of actually the follicles and the maturation of the follicles. The second one, the proliferation of uterine endometrium, regeneration of uterine endometrium, the one which is lost in the previous cycle. So changes in the follicle, the development of the follicle and the formation of mature follicle, as well as actually we have proliferation occurs in the uterine endometrium to replace the worn-out cells. That's why it's called follicular phase to proliferative phase. So it is from 5th to 14th day, roughly about 10 days. Roughly about 10 days. Then the next one, what we have, the ovulatory phase. Ovulatory phase. That is nothing but the release of the egg from the ovary. So it's happening on the 14th day. It's happening on the 14th day. Ovulation. Release of the egg from the ovary. Now the last one, just luteal phase. Luteal phase, also called by another name, secretory phase. That is, we have 15th to 28th day. It also has another name, what's called premenstrual phase. It's not there in the book, premenstrual. As it is happening before menstruation. As it is happening before menstruation is called premenstrual phase. Now it is called luteal phase because of the formation of one structure, corpus luteum. It is called secretive phase because the uterine wall secretes a nutritious fluid for the fetus, hence called secretive phase. Now let's see what are the changes happening in each one. Now the menstrual phase. So normally the menstrual cycle begins with the menstrual phase and it lasts for about 3 to 5 days. Lasts for 3 to 5 days. It marks or it indicates the cycle that starts, the menstrual cycle. I mentioned already the stage between what we have one menstrual period to the next menstrual period constitute the menstrual cycle. That is 28 days. Now, during menstrual phase, what is happening? The degeneration of the uterine endometrium. So it is about 3 to 5 days I mentioned already, the degeneration of the uterine endometrium. The uterine endometrium, the innermost layer of the uterus, is responsible for implantation of the egg. If there is no fertilization, now the uterine endometrium is sloughed off. The uterine endometrium is sloughed off. That is peeled off. The meaning for that one, peeled off. So the degeneration of the uterine endometrium and also the blood vessels present in the uterine endometrium are being ruptured. That is being actually sent out as a menstrual flow. It is about 400 to 500 cc lasting for 3 to 5 days. What is the reason for menstruation? Is otherwise called menses or menstruation. The state is called menstrual phase. What is the reason for menses or menstruation? This is because of the decline of two hormones. There are two hormones that are declining that initiates what we have the breakdown of uterine endometrium along with the blood vessels. What are the two hormones? Hormone number one, just what we have actually progesterone. Another one, what we have actually just estrogen, the female sex hormone. So when the level of progesterone and the estrogen declines, automatically what we have, the layer is peeled off along with the breakdown of blood vessels leading to menstrual flow. So this happens only if the egg is not fertilized. The cyclic changes are taking place again and again. Progesterone is the pregnancy hormone. I'll tell you more about that one. So what's happening, what's the reason for that one? Decline of progesterone and estrogen hormone, both are ovarian hormones. So it happens if the fertilization of the egg is not committed, if the fertilization of the egg is not taking place. So the absence of menstruation is the indicator of pregnancy. If there is no menstruation, if there is no menstrual flow, that indicates actually the pregnancy. It is an indicator of pregnancy. However, sometimes there are also some factors could also be responsible for the absence of menstrual cycle. For example, stress, then hormonal disorders. Even in the case of anemic conditions, there is no menstrual phase. So, absence of menstrual phase is an indication of that is pregnancy. But sometimes the absence of menstrual phase is also due to stress, then what we have hormonal imbalance or disorders or anemic conditions. These are all favoring what is called the menstrual phase. So it occurs if there is no fertilization occurs. Okay, the menstrual phase. Now we have to go to the next one, follicular phase. Now the second phase of menstrual cycle, follicular phase or proliferative phase. Proliferative. So it extends from 5th to 14th day, roughly about 10 days. So what is happening? Changes occur both in the ovary and in the uterine wall. Now it is called follicular phase because the primary follicle starts growing and converted into and form into a mature Graafian follicle. So changes in the ovary is called follicular stage. What is happening? The primary follicle starts growing and develops into the mature Graafian follicle. This is in the ovary. At the same time, changes occur in the uterine endometrium, the inner layer, where the endometrium is lost already in the previous cycle. It is being regenerated by the proliferation of the cells of the endometrium, hence called proliferative phase. This is with reference to the ovary, this is with reference to what is called uterine endometrium. These two changes, that is changes in the uterus, changes in the ovary, are induced by two what is called anterior pituitary hormone. One is FSH, another one what we have LH. These are the two ovarian hormones, these are the two anterior pituitary hormones induces the changes in both ovary as well as in the follicles, that is ovary as well as in the uterine endometrium. So these two hormones are increasing in level during the follicular phase. So the predominant ovarian hormone during the follicular phase, FSH and LH. The concentration is increasing till the ovulation occurs, until or just unless the ovulation occurs. So it is increasing up to 14th day. So it also stimulates, the follicular phase also stimulates the release of female sex hormone, estrogen, by the follicle cells. Estrogen by the follicle cells. So the hormones which are increasing level after the 14th day, FSH, LH, both are responsible for the proliferation of the uterine endometrium as well as the growth of the follicles into mature follicles, the Graafian follicles. They also stimulate what we call the secretion of estrogen. Now estrogen is the predominant ovarian hormone during follicular phase. As per the entrance examination point of view, it is a predominant ovarian hormone. Predominant ovarian hormone during what is called the follicular phase. This is one. That's about the follicular phase. Development of follicle. So it stimulates the development of follicle as well as what we call the release of the hormone estrogen by the follicle cells. So two events, changes in the ovary and changes in the uterine endometrium. That lasts for 10 days. The hormones are FSH, LH, they are increasing up to the 14th day. Then estrogen is the predominant ovarian hormone secreted by the follicle cells of the ovary. The next one is the ovulatory phase. It is so called because the release of the egg from the ovary occurs, and that process is called ovulation. So it is normally on the 14th day. Ovulation occurs on the 14th day, normally on average. It ranges from 11th to 16th day, but normally on average 14th day. Now during that period, just actually from that follicular phase, the FSH and LH attains the peak level. Then finally the level of FSH decreases and the LH level remains there. It increases. Now during that period of ovulation, maximum secretion of LH occurs, and that is called LH surge. This is 1-2 marks question. What is LH surge? The maximum secretion of LH during the ovulation period is called LH surge. It causes, actually induces or stimulates the rupture of the Graafian follicle. Rupture of Graafian follicle. Rupture of the Graafian follicle and release of egg. Release of egg. I mentioned already, when the egg is released from the ovary or from the ovary wall, it is in the secondary oocyte stage. So when the egg is released from the ovary during ovulation, it completed only just the first reduction division and is called secondary oocyte. Further maturation occurs only after fertilization process. So the rupture of the Graafian follicles occurs because of the maximum secretion of luteinizing hormone, and the release of the egg, that is secondary oocyte, occurs, and this process is called ovulation process. So during ovulatory process, what is happening? FSH level decreases, LH level increases, then maximum secretion of LH occurs, and that is called LH surge, that causes the rupture of the Graafian follicles and the release of the egg. That process is called ovulation. At the time of ovulation, the egg is in secondary oocyte stage. Okay, we'll go to the next one, the fourth phase. Now the last phase of the menstrual cycle is the luteal phase. Now it is between 15th to 28th day, roughly about 14 days. The follicular phase about 10 days. Menstrual phase about, you see that one, 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days, 10 days, and then 14 days. What's happening? After the release of the egg, we have the empty ruptured follicle. The empty ruptured Graafian follicle gets transformed into a transitory endocrine gland. Transitory endocrine gland. Called corpus luteum. corpus luteum. A transitory means temporary, because it is persisting only fertilization occurs and pregnancy is proceeding. It occurs only during pregnancy. So the empty follicle, ruptured follicle cells get transformed into transitory endocrine gland, what is called corpus luteum. It is a yellow color structure, hence the name is given luteum. Okay, now it releases a major hormone during that period. A predominant hormone during luteal phase is what we have, progesterone. Progesterone hormone. This is the pregnancy hormone. This is the pregnancy hormone. So the predominant, actually there is a hormone, that is ovarian hormone secreted during the luteal phase is progesterone. So it is secreted by the corpus luteum. It is responsible for proper maintenance of uterine endometrium. Suppose if fertilization occurs, this progesterone causes the implantation of the egg to the uterine wall and maintains the pregnancy. That is, if fertilization occurs, hence called progesterone pregnancy hormone. It's a steroidal hormone. Now during that period, what is happening? The uterine wall secretes a nutritious fluid in the uterus for the fetus, hence called what is known as secretive phase. Why is it called a secretive phase? The uterine wall secretes the nutritious fluid in the uterus for the fetus, hence called secretive phase. So if fertilization occurs, then the corpus luteum is continued to work and maintains the pregnancy period. Suppose if there is no fertilization, what will happen? The corpus luteum degenerates and is being replaced by another scar tissue. Another scar tissue, what is called corpus albicans. Corpus albicans, white in color. This is a non-functional corpus luteum. It is a non-functional corpus luteum which is being formed if there is no fertilization occurs. It is nothing but the scar tissue, that is non-functional tissue. Just during the conversion of corpus luteum into corpus albicans. So it also stimulates what is called the degeneration of uterine endometrium. It's also just normally causes the degeneration of uterine endometrium and leads to menstruation that marks the next menstrual cycle. That marks the beginning of the next menstrual cycle. That's about what we have the luteal phase, roughly about 14 days. So these are all the different stages that occur during what we have the menstrual cycle. I'll represent in the form of a picture or a diagram. You can see that one. Okay. The following diagram shows the various stages of menstrual cycle. I represented 4 blocks A, B, C, D. Now in the A block, I represented what we have the anterior pituitary hormones, the levels FSH and LH. Now here you see that one. First we have the FSH level is increasing gradually. Then on 14th day its level declines. But the level of LH hormone increases because it is responsible for the ovulation and also the formation of corpus luteum. That's why I represented a peak luteinizing hormone. Now in block B, I represent the events in the ovary. Now we have several follicles start developing. Just 1, 2, 3, 4 I represent the development of various follicles, primary, secondary, tertiary. And finally I represented one single mature follicle. Now on day 14, the rupture of the graphene follicle release of the egg, and that is called ovulation. After ovulation, the empty follicle gets converted into a transitory endocrine gland, what is called corpus luteum. And if fertilization does not occur, If there is no pregnancy, it is being represented as a scar tissue, lost its function, then it's called corpus albicans. Luteum is yellow in color, albicans is white in color. Now the third block I represent the various hormones produced by the ovary. So we have to represent the antipituitary hormones and ovarian hormone. They play a major role. Now here represented, first one you see that one, estrogen hormone. Its level is increasing and then being just represented steadily and declining the next menstrual cycle. Now if fertilization occurs, now what is happening, the level of the progesterone increases. This is because of the formation of corpus luteum. If there is no fertilization, ultimately the decline of progesterone and estrogen that actually causes the menstrual flow leading to menstruation. That marks the beginning of the next cycle. Now the fourth block shows the events in the endometrium of the uterus. Now the uterine endometrium is increasing actually gradually, thickening of the uterine endometrium. The cells are highly proliferating and the glands are developed. So it becomes highly proliferated and vascularized endometrium because of the addition of more and more cells. Repair and regeneration of the endometrium occurs. Now here the day 1 to 5, if there is no fertilization, we have the menstrual flow, the menstrual phase occurs. So bleeding and sloughing, that is called menstruation. That is peeled off. The uterine endometrium is peeled off. That marks the beginning of the next cycle. There also we have the bleeding if the cycle is normally complete, where there is no fertilization occurs. So I represented all these days, just 1, 3, 5, 7 like that up to 28. The day 1 to 5 marks what we have the bleeding. The 14th day is responsible for the ovulation, the day 14, after which we have the various changes. And finally what is happening, once fertilization is not there, ultimately the uterine endometrium is peeled off or what is called sloughed off. That begins the menstrual flow, marking the menstruation and marking the next menstrual cycle. That's about what we have. Okay, you have to represent 4 blocks. This is antipituitary hormones, changes in the ovary, and this is ovarian hormones, and here the changes in the uterine endometrium. Go through the diagram. I also represent a picture in the video. Go through that one. Okay, when then I concluded the menstrual cycle, we have to go to the various events what given in the book in the next class. Thank you.